My name is Chris Harders, and I'm a very sensitive person. And I've learned ways to not only not be overwhelmed in what were formerly overwhelming situations for myself as a sensitive, but really how to thrive in life. And I hope that some of what I'm going to share is going to help you too. Now, this specific piece is related to how we get energetically drained. And I kind of break it up into three different ways we get energetically drained. So that way, when you're feeling drained, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you can reflect on what's going on to either recharge and reset quickly or move yourself to a place where you can down regulate in a better way. So here's the three things that I found, and then we'll go into each in a little bit more detail, with the first two kind of being the simplest, and then the third have a lot more nuance. And I'll give you a few starting points, but it's really, I mean, it's a whole longer conversation in its own right. So here's the three things. One, we have the environment, and we have the parts of the environment that are within our control and the parts of the environment that are not within our control. I'll get into that in a second. We have our physiology, our physiological energy, and then we have interpersonal energy. So this is the energy exchange between people. And it's not uncommon for sensitives to get very overwhelmed, especially with the interpersonal. And so I'll give you a few tips on what I've seen to be helpful there. Now, let's get to environment. Number one with environment. So, environment is everything around you. It could be like me, I've got this phone screen right here. I've got the cars moving outside. I've got the room that I'm in, the lights that I'm in of the room, the temperature of the room, the city I'm in. All of that is environment, and all of that is going to contribute to your energy. And the big questions to ask is, when do you feel very charged and when do you feel most alive? For me, it tends to be when I'm in natural settings. It tends to be when I'm at a lake, when I'm at the ocean, when I am in the mountains, when I'm in nature among many trees. And I don't always get to be in that environment. I do know that that uplifts me the most, and I can even ride that out for a while. So if I'm ever in a very down state, I can say, what's going on in my environment right now? And I realize, oh, I've been in an urban environment for quite some time. Maybe I need to change things and go for an outing into a more natural setting, which is going to be rejuvenating for me and kind of help me bounce back. Now, in a more practical daily situation, when I start feeling overwhelmed, I do check in with environment and I think, what's going on right now? Is there anything around here that's going on that is bothering me unconsciously, so I can become conscious of it and see if I can either change it, or if just by becoming conscious of it, I can sort of reorient my relationship with how I am attuning to it. So, for instance, if I am in a loud, crowded bar, I might be overwhelmed because there's just a big buzz going on. I might be overwhelmed because it's too warm or I feel claustrophobic. And if I feel claustrophobic, it might just be as simple as moving to a different place in the bar where it's less dense. It might even be just as simple as me recognizing it's the claustrophobia that was causing the overwhelm, and me making an observation that I'm actually safe, that there's exits, that maybe people aren't as close as I thought. And by just reevaluating the situation, my overwhelm can decrease. It might be a situation where it's freaking hot outside. It's not uncommon for me to get have a lot of problems if it's too hot. And for that situation, I know first off to control my thinking so that it doesn't continue speeding up, because that anxiety is not going to help anything. The anxiety, which then could lead to a panic attack, will not help my situation. So I know to remain calm. I know to breathe deeply. And then I know my number one and number two are objective are find shade. And if I once I find shade, find water. Once I found water, find ice, find an AC, find cool places to be. Those are my top priorities. And at this point in time, I've been in overwhelmingly hot situations enough times where I sort of have developed a protocol for that. And eventually, for you, if you're in similar situations that tend to lead to overwhelm, you might be able to develop a protocol so that it stops being overwhelming for you. There was even a period of time where I knew so strongly that, like heat, for instance, would overwhelm me, that I would actually carry some of those ice packs that you could just crack, and they were like instant ice packs. So I had those because I knew that if I cracked one of those and then applied it to the back of my neck or the back of my head or to my forehead, the heat my body was experiencing would at least lower temporarily, so that I would have more opportunity to sort out my environment and what I needed. So that's just one example, but it can be any number of things. What if it's too bright? Perhaps wearing a pair of sunglasses is a solution. Perhaps it's something different. But knowing your environment and beginning to tune in and say, okay, is it my environment that's overwhelming right now? That's sort of the first check. And either it's a yes or it's a no. And then you can move on and check into the next one. Because the next one, if I'm feeling overwhelmed or feeling antsy and I can't quite tell what's going on, I've already checked environment. Let's say that that was good. Next, I would check physiology. How much sleep did I have the night before and how long have I been up today? It's very common that as I get more tired, as I lose physiological energy, I become just more sensitive to everything. I don't have the same resources I did. Now, when I consciously tune into my energy tools, they will still continue to help, but they're not running on autopilot the same way they would be if I was recharged and if I had more rest. I also tune into when did I have caffeine if I had caffeine that day. It's not uncommon for me to crash hours later if I drink if I have a caffeinated substance. And so knowing that the way I'm feeling is related to the caffeine crash can at least begin to help me understand why I'm feeling overwhelmed, and then I can decide how I want to respond to that. I can possibly just drink more caffeine, so that way I can coast on caffeine until I'm at a better place to rest and to reset myself. Other reasons that I might be, having a problem might be related to dehydration, might be related to not eating enough or low blood sugar. For me, if I am having a hard time and I have a sugar packet or two and put it under my tongue, it really changes things for me. And I've even had doctors tell me that the way my body metabolizes things, it's I'm better off not having sugar products all the time. All I know is if I am in a state where I am in a deep energetic dip, if I have sugar under the tongue, it makes a big difference for me. So you'll have to orient and decide what works for you, but checking on physiology can be so powerful because just the number of times I realized it wasn't anything about the environment, wasn't even about the people, which we'll get into in a sec, but it was legitimately, oh, I need more rest. Somewhat similar to environment, oh, my body's overheating right now, I need to be cool. And once those needs have been met for the body, then I'm good. Then things can go on. And of course, caffeine's one substance. There's other substances out there, right? I don't consume much beyond caffeine these days. But if you were to drink or consume other substances, then those are going to have a real effect on you, and maybe they will cause problems for your sensitivities. So it's just useful to be aware of. So environment, physiology, and the last one's interpersonal. So if I've gone through and I've evaluated my environment, I'm more or less good. I know how to handle my environment. If I evaluate my physiology is largely good, and if I happen to be engaging with another person and I realize I'm feeling pretty off, that's where I'm going to orient my attention. And if I've been reading energy, so at this point I'm pretty familiar with energies and I'm familiar with what the signals I'm getting from my body are, I'm going to tune into those signals for a second. I'm going to say, okay, what am I needing to learn or know about the situation? And I might be getting the hit of, okay, this person has a strong ego and they're really kind of projecting their ego at me. Okay. Or I might get the hit of, oh, this person's got kind of a energy vampire orientation to them. They're trying to drain me, whether intentionally or not intentionally. How do I want to engage with them? Or it might be, oh, this person's just laying out very heavy stuff and I can't handle it right now. I don't want to listen to them, their tale of woe. I don't want to listen to them talk about grief or whatever their hardship is. I just can't handle it at the moment. I only have so much negativity I can handle in my life at a given time. So once I understand what's going on, then I can choose the right way to respond. Now, if it's a person we can say with non-ideal intentions, even if they're unconscious of them. So if it's an energy vampire, if it's a narcissist, I'm going to find a way to exit the conversation if it's at all possible. Now, in the less common situation for me these days, that I can't exit the conversation, I'm going to try to minimize the amount of energy expenditure I have in it. And I'm also going to put my, I guess some people call it shields up, right? They would imagine themselves in a bubble that like reflects or something. And that's one way that I engage with people. But more often these days, I first of all make sure that I have my grounding cord set. And then as this person's saying whatever they're saying, I'm just repeating to myself, not mine. That's the intention, just not mine. And so as they're saying to this to me, I'm imagining not mine as this energy comes into my auric bubble, comes into my personal space, and just moves down my grounding cord. I am not trying to interpret their information. I am just letting it move through me and be a conduit for that information and that energy to get transmuted and go wherever it needs to go, but it's not going to get stuck in my layer. I don't need to deal with it. I don't need to carry that around. And then when it's time to go, then we're going to go and go on to the next thing. Now, typically what I'll also do is I'll run source energy at that point. So I'll intend that there's source energy coming from above, moving and pouring over my auric layer, moving up through my central column, and going into this torus-like fashion, so that it's just moving through my aura. And this high vibrational source energy that is pure potential is there to heal me, as well as block out any lower vibrational energies. The lower vibrational energies just can't stay in my space when this high vibrational energy is moving. This high vibrational energy is going to either send it back up to source to get transmuted, or the source is going to pick it up and clear it up and send it down my grounding cord. Either way, I'm fine with it as long as it's not in my space. And typically when I run source energy, it's very healing. It feels very good. So I'm talking to somebody who's a challenging person who I really don't have a goal of having the conversation go forever. But while it's happening, I am just basking in source energy, getting my own healing as this person's doing as they will. Now, what I will do though is I'm going to see, are there ways I can change the direction of the conversation so that it doesn't need to last as long? Can I have this person talk to somebody else? They're going to talk to somebody else anyhow. It doesn't have to be me necessarily. I might just try to change the topic so we can talk about something that's lighter if the person themselves may not necessarily be the problem, but it's the topic of conversation. So I might just say, you know what, I really can't talk about this right now. It's a little too heavy for me. Do you mind if we talk about something different? I might even just make a suggestion of what we talk about instead. I might wave over to my friend or excuse myself from the conversation. It's really based on so many dynamics, which I just can't go into all of them right now. But the idea is, first I check which of these three is the reason I'm feeling overwhelmed. Is it the environment? Is it physiologically I need to do something, typically rest, but also consume food or drink? Or is it interpersonal and I need to change the dynamics of the conversation I'm in? Now, once upon a time, I was a dating coach, and I had tens of thousands of conversations, and know a lot as there is to conversational stuff. So I do have a little bit of an edge when it comes to the interpersonal thing and ability to kind of shift things, ability to end things, and all of that. The biggest thing I would say is, don't be afraid to, you don't have to be a people pleaser. This is very common with sensitives, at least what I've noticed. They want to appease people because it doesn't feel good to be rejected, and sensitive people are very sensitive to how other people are interpreting them. And yet, it's not your job, it's not your responsibility for how someone reacts or interprets what you're giving them, how you're responding to what they're doing. In fact, if it is an energy vampire or a narcissist, or even somebody who's just unloading heavy stuff on you, you being very clear with your boundaries and even cutting things off if it's not a good fit for you, it's not being impolite. In fact, it's one of the most polite things you can do, because you are teaching them, maybe not at the conscious level, but at a level, like, this isn't how we interact with each other. And it's resetting the framework of relationships for you and that person, and possibly for that person in future relationships that they have. To just give a quick example, I was having a conversation with somebody very new, somebody I didn't know very well, who was just unloading with me about all the stresses in their life and about the things that were bothering them. And I sent a message where I said, hey, I would rather not talk about this. Can we talk about something, fun? This isn't really the type of conversation I would have with somebody I'm getting to know. And then they said, no, but this is what friends talk about. And I said, well, I mean, not really. This isn't what my friends would talk about. I mean, sure, once in a while, I would say 5%, maybe 10% of the time, we've got trials and tribulations to share. There's also a lot of positives to be shared, and I'm not going to begin a relationship with somebody with them venting at me the hardships in their life. That's not showing that it's going to be a good relationship for me. So I made that very clear in the beginning, and the person slow down their messaging substantially with me. And that's fine. I'm fine with that outcome because I get my energy. I get my energy back. I'm not putting my energy into an interpersonal relationship that would be draining me. And so I hope this can be used for you. These are all just little tactics that I've learned over the years that have made my life as a sensitive move from being overwhelming to me being wildly grateful for being sensitive. And of course, this is more I would call like protection strategies and strategies for when you are overwhelmed. There's much cooler things about, how do you set a room so when you walk in, it feels like it was made for you and the people there are really the ones that you want. But this is very useful to have because I mean, almost in order to have a good offense or something like that, you need to have a good defense. So this is kind of the defense side, so that when you go into setting your reality and having it really work for you, you also know that you always have these fundamentals to fall back on. So you just get to enjoy life more.